Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about 10 unseen commander staples that could be hiding in plain sight. So these are 10 cards that are rarely played that are absolutely, in my opinion, worth checking out depending on what your deck is. I aim for ones that will fit into the variety of decks, so, be able to fit into every kind of deck you potentially look at. However, some of them are going to be a bit more niche. Hopefully you can pick up something cool from here for a deck that you're working on or a deck that you already have. So let's get started. Before we do though, make sure you subscribe, make sure you share the video around, all that kind of stuff. We're trying to hit 25,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Hopefully we can get there. First up, we've got Righteous Aura. So this one here is a enchantment that you can pay white and then pay 2 life to make the next time a source of your choice would deal damage to you this turn, prevent that damage. Now keep in mind, you can pay this multiple times. It doesn't have like, a tap cost or anything like that, but as a way for you to potentially, prevent bigger damage. If you're going to take like, 30 damage from someone's commander or something like along those lines, then you can use this to prevent that damage. You'll just have to have it, out in the battlefield. Now, in a life gain deck, this pay 2 life isn't going to be quite as bad. It doesn't feel as bad because you've got a whole bunch of life that you can potentially do, but you could also use it in a life loss deck. For example, the one from Baitor from the Dragonstorm expansion, you could potentially use this there. There's just a bunch of different uses for this where you can just prevent that damage to make sure that, this pay 2 life is less of a, less damage than you would be taking from something otherwise. So it's, nice kind of redirect that into a smaller, more manageable size of damage, especially when there's so many like damage multipliers and stuff going around for certain creatures and stuff, especially in red. Next up, we've got Martyr's Bond. So this one here is whenever Martyr's Bond or another non-land permanent, keep in mind it says non-land permanent. It does not say that it, has to be a non-token. So tokens count for this. You control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifices a permanent that shares a card type with it. So this is very similar like a grave pack kind of thing, except for 1, it's in white, and 2, it is all things, right? It's not just, your creatures. It is all non-land permanents. So, you've got like treasures, for example. That's a big one. You've got like a white treasure deck or something like that. You sacrifice your treasure. Now, every opponent is going to have to sacrifice a artifact, or you sacrifice your creatures. You've got an aristocrat deck going. Opponents are going to have to sacrifice their creatures. This is going to be a huge target for removal, just like Grave Pact and stuff is, because of the fact that it's just quite so powerful. It is just an incredible card. It's quite expensive, up there at 6. It's going to take you a little bit to kind of get online, but once you kind of get that online, you can have those other things tuning out, like turning out artifact tokens, creature tokens, etc., that you can then just sacrifice, or, if they happen to die, then boom, now your opponents are sacrificing their stuff. Next up, we've got Dissipation Field. So this is another enchantment for blue this time, which is whenever a permanent deals damage to you, keep in mind it's any permanent, and it just has to deal damage to you, not even combat damage, you're going to return it to its owner's hand. So if an opponent has a Spellslinger deck that's got, like dealing 1 damage to each person whenever you cast a spell, boom, that's going back to their hand. Or, they're like Gutter Snipe or something like that, back to their hand. Their commander goes in, swings, hits you, boom, that's back to their hand. You get to just return a whole bunch of different stuff to opponents' hands, which is great because, it's one thing to remove it into the graveyard, depending on what the deck is, but another to just send it back to their hand. Now, it does obviously have to deal damage to you, so even if you, prevent that damage or something like that, it does have to deal damage to you. You have to make sure that, it hits you, but boom, it's back to opponent's hand, which is great to be able to kind of, help control out their board. Sometimes them casting something from their hand is going to be more annoying than them, just being able to have it out already, or, even sending it to the graveyard, depending on what the deck is. If they've got a graveyard recursion deck, sending it back to their hand could potentially set them back further. Next up, we've got Infernal Offering. So this here is a big card. It's going to cost you 5. Choose an opponent. You and that opponent each sacrifice a creature. Each player who sacrifices a creature this way draws 2 cards. So you're going to target an opponent. It doesn't even target. You choose an opponent. that opponent sacrifices a creature, you sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards. So if you've got a whole lot of little minions out there, then, you know, you can sacrifice your tokens and make that Voltron player sacrifice their commander or something. And then also choose an opponent, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and then they get to do the same. These can be different opponents. So you can choose, you know, the Voltron commander here, and then you can choose a different opponent for this one, which is great, right? Like there's so many different ways that you can abuse this to 1, draw cards, 2, get rid of an opponent's thing, and 3, bring something back. It is great recursion. It is great way to, you know, just remove something, and great way to get some card draw as well. We've got Plum the Forbidder. Now, I know that there was huge hype around this one, specifically when the, the Bloomburrow Commander came out because of the reprint in there, but I do feel it kind of goes under the radar a lot. So this one here is 1. It is it's an instant, which is huge. You also pay 1 and a black for it, which again is huge. So you're going to, in addition to the cast cost for this, you can sacrifice 1 or more creatures. So you can sacrifice out all your little tokens, or, you know, all your creatures in response to a board wipe or something. You are then going to draw a card and lose a life, but when you sacrifice creatures, you're going to copy it for each creature sacrificed this way. So if you sacrifice a whole bunch of things, you're going to draw a whole bunch of cards. You will lose life, obviously, in addition to that, but depending on what your kind of deck is, there's a whole bunch of like aristocrat strategies that have like, you know, when a creature dies, gain a life, right? Or when a creature dies, each opponent loses a life, you gain a life. So therefore you kind of offset this to just turn it into, I'm going to negate your board wipe because now I'm killing my stuff myself, and then also drawing heaps of cards in response to that. There is just a bunch of different uses for this, which is great, right? Also, if opponents are exiling your stuff, you can cast this in response to that, sacrifice your whole board so that way they're in the graveyard for you to be able to recur if you're in a recursion-based deck. Next up, we've got Blood Frenzy. So this one here it's interesting, right? So target attacking or blocking creature. So you can target any attacking or blocking. Does not even have to be your stuff. Gets +4/+0 until end of turn. Then at the end of turn, destroy that creature. So you can use this to make a, like, say your opponent's wall, right? Your opponent has a wall up, you buff up their wall, so now it's killing their opponent's thing that's hitting them, and then also you destroy that creature at the end of it. Red doesn't have very many, like, destroy target creature things, right? For this is great. It does have to be an attacking or blocking creature, but you can use this, right? Like your opponent's getting attacked by something, like an opponent's like, you know, getting attacked by someone else's commander or something. You target it, you give that, you know, +4/+0 damage. So then they're coming in with that bigger power creature, you know, hitting their opponent, and then also they have to destroy that creature. It's great. I think that it's just honestly a really great kind of, you know, card for, you know, red, which barely ever has destroy target creature abilities. Next up, we've got Elephant Grass. So this one here is interesting. So it makes black creatures not be able to attack, and then also non-black creatures can't attack you unless their controller pays an additional 2 for each attacking creature. This is basically like a green version of like the Ghostly Prison, etc. Right? Like it's a green version of the Ghostly Prison. You do need to have that cumulative upkeep, so you do need to pay 1 at the start of, you know, the first turn has been out, 2, etc. You can keep it around for a while because you're in green, right? You're ramping out the wazoo. So it's a great way to be able to have that. Now, it also says black creatures can't attack you. So technically you can attack with your black creatures. So it doesn't matter if you're in like a Golgari deck or something. You can also potentially recur this, right? Like you have it out. You know, you can't play cumulative upkeep because it's got too high. It goes into the graveyard and then you just bring it back because, you know, that's what black does, or, you know, whatever deck you're in, right? White's got a whole bunch of like enchantment recursion as well. There's a bunch of ways to just be able to abuse this, be able to make it so your opponents either can't attack or they can't attack you, or they can attack you, but they have to pay extra for it. Next, we've got Edge of Autumn. This was the one at the very start there. And this was one that I discovered when I was doing Time Master Remastered draft for, I think it was like our 10-year anniversary for our like local game store. So this is, if you control 4 or fewer lands, search for your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So that is a very nice kind of, you know, just a ramp spell, right? And it's basically the kind of cost that you pay for like getting additional land out. However, in addition to that, it's also got cycling, sacrifice a land. So therefore, you can cast this for, like, you know, for its cycling cost, so you don't have to pay any mana in addition to it. You sacrifice a land, and then you get to discard this card and draw a card. So while that might not seem great in a lot of decks, if you have lots and lots of cards, right? Like you have lots of cards in your hand, not lots of cards in your hand. You don't have a lot of cards in your hand. You have a lot of lands. You have heaps of lands out there. You have nothing much to do with them. Because your hand's full and you've, like, you know, happen to draw a ramp spell later on, which is a big thing, right? Like if I draw a rampant growth later in the game, it is not as powerful as if I draw it at the very start. So this kind of bypasses that by allowing you to then discard it, sacrifice a land to draw a card. Just get that extra card draw there, just, you know, in response to sacrificing land. But, you know, there's a whole bunch of green decks that play lands from the graveyard or be able to recur lands, like, you know, the new Hearthhull deck and stuff like that, right? Like being able to bring those lands back or benefit from sacrificing lands even. So this enables you to be able to kind of, you know, get extra value out from your land later in the game. Next, we've got supply and demand. So this one here is a banned card, which doesn't seem great, right? Like it's going to restrict it. There's not going to be as many cards for you to be able, like as many decks for you to be able to do it. But it's a very, very cheap tutor spell. There's not a lot of, you know, cheap tutor spells like this. Or you can also cast it to just get a big wave out of saprolings, which, you know, depending on what your deck is, you could make use of them in a number of different ways. This one here is probably the more niche of the, you know, different 10 cards there. But, you know, if you've got a alternate commander in your deck or something like that that you could potentially bring out, that would be great. You know, a secret commander in there that's only, you know, say an Azorius, say an Azorius commander within your banned deck. You know, you can't usually bring out that Azorius commander because you want that green in there. Now you can bring it out with the demand and then play it afterwards. There's just a bunch of different uses for it. And the supply, you know, if you just need a big kind of board for whatever reason, you've got that option there as well. Next, we've got Arena of Ancients. This one here is very, very interesting. So you pay 3, it comes in, and you're going to tap all legends. Now it says legends, however, it's been errated, / you know, brought up to the modern time as legendary creatures. So you're going to tap all legendary creatures. Legendary creatures do not untap during their controller's untap phase. Now, if your commander is not as important to your game plan, or you're barely ever going to be attacking with your commander, this is great. Or if you have a way to be able to untap your commander, again, this is going to be great. If you've got a nice control deck or something like that, you can use this, control down your opponent's stuff. There is a bunch of legends out there that people are going to be wanting. It also doesn't target, so, you know, that opponent who has the Swiftfoot boots going, or their Captain America that's also got vigilance, boom, it's going to get tapped down, and all of a sudden, you know, you're back in the game. It's just a nice control piece. It's kind of more niche because you need to be coming up against certain legends, but we're in Commander. Everyone's going to have legendary creatures, whether it's their commander or just, you know, within their 99. There is going to be a bunch of different uses for this, depending on what your deck is. Like, you know, there's that Spider-Man card from the scene box, right? Like that it was specifically built around kind of tapping things down and stuff. This will be great within that. All right, now that's it for today, guys. I'd love to hear from you guys as to what you think. Are there any of them that you're interested for in your decks? I hope you guys had a wonderful day, and goodbye.